This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV. We're very pleased to be joined today by Murray Goldberg, CEO of Marine Learning Systems. And Murray, first and foremost, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Greg. I've been looking forward to this.
Okay. Well, as I hope many of you know, Murray writes a regular column for Maritime Reporter called Training Tips for Ships. We're up to tip number 15 as of the August 2020 edition. And Murray, this one was an interesting one because this recent column was on using student exam results to monitor our performance. And I believe in it you wrote that the vast majority of maritime training or maritime trainers are ignoring this tool. And my first question simply is, why is this an important tool and why should we not ignore it?
Yeah, I mean, so interestingly, it's not only trainers that are ignoring it, but it's administrators as well, because this is very important organizational and strategic information that companies, operators can have access to. So why are they ignoring it right now? It's only because really this is new. This is fairly new. I mean, maritime training is fairly traditional, and compounded with that is the fact that this kind of data analysis or data science is a fairly new thing. And so we haven't really seen the power of it. We haven't discussed it a lot. And so it's just not there yet in terms of being foremost in the minds of trainers and administrators. But the ability is there and the tools now are there. So now it's a very good time. And why should we not ignore it? I mean, it's incredible what data science can do for us in all aspects of life, not just training. I mean, you know, with a pandemic, we've all heard the stories about how data science has led to candidate vaccines and candidate treatments in a matter of short months instead of many years or even a decade or more. Well, it's that same kind of power that we can apply to training to improve our training outcomes and to improve our training experiences. So it's important, and it's time that we do this.
Okay, so let's just say I'm a maritime trainer. How can I go about turning this information into actionable intelligence?
Yeah, so there are many ways that this can be done. And in the article, I just highlighted two of the most simple ways. And really all of them are about looking at the data that we already have and just slicing and dicing it a little bit differently. So a couple examples. We know we all give online exams or exams of any kind. It doesn't have to be online, multiple choice exams, let's just say. We have answers to questions that trainees have given us. How can we look at those answers to derive insights? So one example is looking at how people answer questions that relate to a particular competency. So let's just say we have a deckhand exam that tests 5 or 10 different competencies that deckhands need. If overall the deckhands are getting, say, 80% on average on that exam, it may cause us to sleep well at night thinking, hey, they get it, that's fantastic. But if instead we dig a little bit deeper and we find, let's say we segregate out perhaps the firefighting knowledge exams, questions rather, those questions that pertain to firefighting knowledge. If we segregate those out and look at average performance just over that group of questions, we might find that they're not doing that well on that group. They're getting 50% on average. So now we have this kind of interesting dichotomy where overall it looked like people were doing well on the exam, but digging a little bit deeper, we find that this important competency, they're just not getting. And we would have no way, I mean, this is floating below the surface and we're gonna hit that thing. This is not something that is good. It's gonna result in an issue going forward. It's really a leading indicator of safety. So all we have to do is take a look at competency by competency and analyze on average how well people are doing on those questions within those competencies. And that gives us tremendous information to actually fix problems. Another good example, the second one that I gave on the column, is simply about looking at individual questions on our exams and not looking so much about what people are getting right, but what they're getting wrong and how they're getting it wrong. So again, in a multiple choice question, we will often find that maybe 70, 80% of the people who do that question are getting it right. But it's usually the case, if you look at those questions, that most of the people who get it wrong are selecting the same wrong answer. That's very revealing if we can get that information, because what it does is it tells us there's a common misconception about that knowledge within the organization. And at the very least, it allows us to address that common misconception. And quite possibly, it allows us, again, to avert a safety issue, because it may be that that knowledge relates to safety critical operations. And if people in general have this dangerous misconception, we can head it off before an accident occurs. So those are just two very basic ways of slicing and dicing the data a little bit differently to inform our training as opposed to specifically how that student is doing.
Okay. Well, Murray, I know you're long tenured in this industry, both the education and the maritime industry. I know traditionally maritime companies don't like to see their name in print for the most part, but can you give any real world examples of where you see this particular tool being used to good effect?
Sure. You're right, shouldn't specifically mention companies, but I'll give you some, I'll give you the ways they're looking at this. And because we do see a lot of great examples of organizations, of operators taking this very seriously and using it meaningfully. So, I mean, the first part is you have to have the tools to do this. And fortunately, many already have the tools. If you're giving exams on paper, well, theoretically, you can assemble this information, but it's a big manual task. Computers are very good at doing this for us. So if you give multiple choice exams in a platform that produces these kinds of insights for you, you've already got the data. We've got lots of data. So what we see in our customers is that they take this data and they analyze it as part of a periodic continuous improvement process. So maybe every 6 months, they get together in a small meeting, they go onto the system, they look at the reports, they see, take the two examples I gave you, which questions have common misconceptions, which competencies are not being done well, and they change what they do. They either change the questions if it's a question issue, they change their training if it's a training issue, and then they analyze again. And one really nice thing about this is this kind of data is well suited for continuous analysis. You can see if you make a change, whether that change was positive or negative in the next round of analysis you do. So we see ferry operators, we see cruise lines. It's mostly the highly sophisticated trainers that are already on top of this, but we see it as an expanding thing all the way down to our smallest customer now.
I know that recently Marine Learning Systems signed an agreement with Sqlearn, and can you just discuss what specifically this partnership entails and what it means for your maritime clients?
Sure. Yeah, Sqlearn, the relationship we have with them is one of several similar relationships. And what does it really recognize? So Sqlearn is a content vendor, a maritime content vendor. They produce excellent maritime online learning content. As an organization, we provide a platform, and our customers, as I'd mentioned before, are relatively sophisticated, and they understand that they won't get all the content that they need, the best of breed content for a variety of different topics from a single vendor. They know that they have to go to one vendor, perhaps, for the best of breed polar navigation course, and another provider for the best of breed confined space entry course. And maybe they have to build internally the best content that they have access to for internal procedures and routines. And so the best content, if you want to make a top quality learning program, will come from a variety of sources. So Sqlearn is one of the organizations that we have relationships with that simply make it very easy for our joint customers to be able to choose the content that's most appropriate for that particular topic they have and build out this learning program that consists only of best of breed content from a wide variety of sources. So we're very pleased about that.
That's awesome. Well, as always, Murray, very active in the field. And again, I truly appreciate your time and your insight. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Great talking to you. Have a great day.
Okay. This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV.